Hello and welcome to whathifi.com.
Today we're going to take you through the essential steps for getting your home cinema system to perform at its very best.
In some ways, a home cinema setup is even more complex than a hi-fi audio system, and that means optimizing it can be even more difficult.
Simply choosing the kit and matching your system is only the first part of the battle. If you take a few simple steps to optimize your system, you'll see and hear it perform better than you ever would have imagined.
The most essential thing when it comes to balancing and optimizing your home cinema is getting the right sense of scale from both sound and vision.
So if you're setting out with a fixed budget to buy a complete system, you should look to spend exactly half the budget on a display and the other half on everything else.
First of all, think about the room. The ideal setup will have all the speakers equidistant from your sitting position. Now, that may not be possible, but understand the principle involved and you'll be more likely to get the best compromise.
The first thing you'll position, inevitably, is the TV or projector screen. From there, the big challenge is how to accommodate the speakers.
Now, first off, keep the front left and right speakers equidistant from the middle. The ideal is to have them all level, so try not to have the drivers of your center speaker either behind or in front of the drivers on the left and right speakers. If you get the tweeters of all three level on a single plane, the front of your 3D sound field will sound at its best.
Next, you need to position your surround speakers. You want your surround speakers to produce a sound field that's dispersive, solid and cohesive throughout the room. This is not achieved if you have conventional speakers sited too close to you.
Like this. But one solution is having dipole or even bipole speakers as your surrounds. These fire the sound in two different directions rather than one, so they don't blow sound straight down your ear.
Another solution is simply to mount your surround speakers up high rather than at ear level. This creates a more spacious sound, again because the speaker isn't driving the sound directly at your ears. Or you might even experiment with the angle of the speaker itself. Angling it up or down or to the side will increase reflections and create a more dispersed sound.
Now, a good general rule is don't treat your amp's auto-calibration as gospel. Sometimes you can improve the integration of rear speakers by just turning them down.
As much as you can avoid using your amplifier's error correction DSP by getting the speakers into the perfect position, the better your system will sound. Once you position things the best you can, hook it all up, use your amp's auto-calibration, then go back and check the settings manually.
If your amplifier is THX certified, it will have a THX mode, which features a thing called decorrelation. This alters the phase of the rear channels to make a more dispersive sound. This is another possible way to get the best performance if your rear speakers are, by necessity, a little too close to your listening position.
A subwoofer is a bit of a mystery, and for that reason people often make mistakes with them.
So let's start with the basics. A good subwoofer properly set up will have a quality that you might find it hard to get your head around, and that is, if it's working well, you'll hardly notice it.
It's easy to spend money on a sub, then continually walk over and turn it up, just so you can hear what you spent all that hard-earned money on.
Well, don't. If you can hear your sub as a discrete, separate part of the system, it's not installed properly.
Here's what to do. Pick up your subwoofer and place it in your listening position. Then connect it to your system, disconnect all the other speakers at the amplifier, and play a piece of music that is characterized by a repetitive and deep bass line or bass drum rhythm.
Next, walk around the edges of the room, listening carefully to the bass. You'll hear the sound change as you walk, with peaks and troughs of these low frequencies. The peaks are called room modes. Some of these modes really set the room off, making the bass sound very big, but also bloated and imprecise. But there will be other places in the room where the bass sounds strong and clear, with a blend of depth, power, precision, and accuracy.
This is where you should place your subwoofer.
Now, make sure it's level and stable, preferably on spikes. If it's a sealed box cabinet, which they tend to be these days, there's no problem with it being close to a back wall. But if you're putting it in a corner, you may find you get way too much of a bass lift, so be careful of that.
Now, the best way to set up your sub in a home cinema system is to bypass the subwoofer's crossover completely and set everything inside the amplifier. Some subs have an obvious switch for bypassing the crossover. If yours doesn't, just set the crossover to the highest frequency it will go to,
and we'll take care of everything inside the amp.
When setting up all your speakers, look at the manuals for recommendations. If your speakers are small and limited bandwidth, the right crossover will be higher, usually between 100 and 120 Hz, than with full range floor standards, for example. With bigger speakers, the THX recommended crossover is 80 Hz.
Now, some subs have their own EQ presets built in. It may be that there's a particular frequency that's setting off a room mode. An EQ setting that reduces the volume of that frequency could make it sound just right.
Lastly, some people find that once their sub is installed, it isn't producing enough level for the room,
or for their headbanging tastes.
If that's the case and your sub has left and right phono inputs, there's a simple solution. Just get a Y lead like this one from QED, which takes a single cable from your amplifier's subwoofer output and splits it into 2 jacks for your sub's 2 inputs. This should result in a gain boost from the sub. Perhaps the biggest question of all is, do you want to use your home cinema system for both movies and music? If so, there are a number of things you can do to optimize the performance of your kit.
The first thing to realise here is that the demands of music and film soundtracks can be very different. If you're using your home cinema for movies only, you don't necessarily need big, full bandwidth speakers for the surrounds. Most of what you hear in the rear channels on movie soundtracks is ambience, so in this case you may be able to create a room-friendly system by having smaller speakers or even in-ceiling speakers for the surrounds.
However, music mixed in surround is a different thing, and you'll need to be more rigorous about matching up all 5 or all 7 speakers in your system.
Also, bear in mind that the LFE channel in a DTS soundtrack is way louder than the equivalent low bass frequencies on your average CD, so the sub will sound very different.
But many amps will allow you to set the speaker system up differently for movies and music. You can go in and turn down the output of DTS content without affecting the overall output of other content.
Lastly, in the real world, you're likely to be using just one source component, like a Blu-ray player, for playing all kinds of discs. But try using multiple outputs from the player to the amp so that the amp treats the different inputs as entirely different sources. Many players allow you to do this, and that way you can tweak the settings for different disc formats, even though they're coming from the same player.
You can even do this using one wire. Using just an HDMI cable, you treat the 2 disc formats differently by selecting them as different sources on the amp.
So when using it as a CD player, for example, you could turn the bass down, turn the DSP off, have as much of a pure direct pathway in the amp as possible, turn the display off even. Any number of things that can help to optimize your experience of music. Then for Blu-ray, simply switch to the other input on the front of the amp.
So we hope you've enjoyed our tips and tricks for getting the most from your home cinema.
Go through all of them one by one, and you can be sure that at the end of it, you'll be getting the most out of your system. So join us again next time, and we'll continue to bring you more advice on getting the very best from your kit, right here on whathifi.com.